And then Jalen was an alleged MVP candidate, and I said, come on. We all know Mahomes the MVP. Jalen's had a great year, but he's not league MVP. There's 1,696 players in the league. MVP is not for a guy who had a great year. It's for the best player in the league who had the best season. Check, check, Mahomes. So now, once again, Eagles fans think I hate him. And Eagles fans are not folks you want to have hating you. They're a fiery bunch. So now I'm in a bit of a pickle because I watched the Eagles yesterday and I say, I'd be pretty nervous if I were them. So yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles forced a turnover on one of the very first plays of the game. They converted into points. Their backup quarterback, they scored 27 on offense, 34 overall. They sacked Dak a half dozen times, and they still lost and allowed 40. And you can't put it on Minshew. I understand Minshew had the 3 turnovers, but he didn't play poorly. 2 of those turnovers were just terrible luck or great plays by Dallas. The handoff, the fumble on the handoff is bad luck. The second pick was a great play by the Cowboy who made the interception. Minshew was fine. And I don't think that game goes a hell of a lot different. Maybe it does with Jalen. Pardon me. But maybe the first game goes different if Dak's playing instead of Cooper Rush. The reason I'd be nervous right now if I'm Philly is it's not just that your quarterback's hurt. And it's not just that you lost Avonte Maddox yesterday, and now when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson comes back, he might have to switch to nickel corner. It's also that Lane Johnson, who's been the best player on your team, arguably, since the Super Bowl, he's now out at least for the rest of the regular season. And you're going to be in this position because you are going to be the 1 seed, which is obviously good, but are you going to play guys in Week 18? Are you going to sit guys? Because if you win this weekend, you lock up the 1 seed. Are you going to sit guys in Week 18? And then Jalen potentially is going to go more than a month without playing. And then you have the bye. And then in round 2, you're likely playing this Cowboys team that just scored 40 on you. Or if somehow the Bucs win, I understand the Bucs are a super flawed team, but if you play them in round 2, it A, means they made the playoffs, B, means they won a playoff game, and C, they're the team that annihilated you in the playoffs last year. So right now, and I know Philly fans don't want to hear it, I think it's more likely Philly is a 1 seed, 1 and done, a la the Titans last year or the Ravens a couple years ago, than they are the NFC Super Bowl representative. The Jalen Hurts injury worries me. The Lane Johnson injury is devastating for them. The defense is getting more and more banged up. And as good as they are at getting to the passer and forcing turnovers, that secondary can get got over the top. That's been a problem for them throughout the year, that when they're not getting the quarterback on the ground or picking the ball off, they can be gotten over the top. I'd be real nervous if I were an Eagles fan. I wouldn't be nervous if I were a Lakers fan. I would just be beyond annoyed. So yesterday, of course, they collapsed in the third quarter. The Mavs score 51 in the third quarter. And LeBron, his 7th straight 30-plus point game, 38, 6, and 5, another marvelous Christmas Day performance by LeBron, not close to enough as the Mavs run away and hide in the second half of this game. And we, as a media, have just almost all decided we are just going to stop being in awe of what LeBron is doing. The record for consecutive 30-point games by a 37-year-old player was Wizards' Michael Jordan at 4. LeBron's now done it 7 times in a row, but that's not really the noteworthy part. The noteworthy part is part of the legend of Michael Jordan is, and he was so old with the Wizards, and he still averaged 22 a night that first year on 41%, and 20 a game the next year. Meanwhile, LeBron turns 38 on Friday, and he's still clearly one of the 10 best players in the league. And somehow, once again, he is in a position in year 20 when, even without Anthony Davis, when he's on the court, his team's awesome. And the moment he goes to the bench, they fall apart. We can show you the last 7 games it's not just what LeBron has done, but and I think there's the full screen. 33, 6, and 7 on 58% shooting. But look at that bottom line. The Lakers are plus 54 when he's on the court, and then minus 60 when he's off the court. And so once again, much like it was with the Cavs in 2018, or hell, the Cavs in 2015, or the Cavs his first time around, or the Lakers his first year there before AD got there, the team cannot sustain minutes without him. And now Jovan Buha is reporting that because the team's not that good, the front office doesn't want to trade for pieces that might make them better. It is, you built a team that can't survive the inevitable Anthony Davis injury, even with LeBron playing far and away the best any player has ever come close to playing at this point in his career. And now, because you built such a bad team, you're using that as an excuse to not try to give this team a puncher's chance that, all right, if the playoffs started and Anthony Davis were healthy, if we were to get in, which they're going to need to make a move to be able to survive the next 6 weeks or however long it is without Anthony Davis. I know there was some reporting, maybe we'll be back in 2 weeks. Whatever it is, they need to make a move to be able to claw their way back into the playoffs. If you were to get there and Anthony Davis were to be healthy for the playoffs, he was playing the best basketball of his life. LeBron is still somehow ageless, and while he's no longer the best player or even a top 5 player in the league, he's clearly a top 10 player. But no, we're fine with a roster where our 4th best player is Austin Reeves and our 5th best player is Lonnie Walker, and where briefly Matt Ryan was getting real minutes, even though he's not an NBA player, because
turns 34 before next season. He's starting to wear down. He's not the MVP he was back in his Houston days. This feels to me kind of like a negotiating ploy to get as much money as possible out of Philadelphia. But James Harden back in Houston,
it's
very
odd.
Interesting take.
It's weird. He took less money to stay in Philly, and the idea was, that he loves Morey. He had the relationship with the previous owner, Michael Rubin of Fanatics, and it was, hey, Harden and Embiid, can they win a title? And by the way, Philly looks good the last month of basketball,
let's not
despite
say good.
the injuries.
They look okay. Let's not say good. I mean,
what haven't they won like 7 in a row? Am I tripping?
They're like a second-tier team in the East after Boston and Milwaukee. We'd agree on that, right?
Well, listen, I think Boston and Milwaukee are the 2 best teams, and then Philly, Cleveland, and Brooklyn are all kind of jostling in that next spot. But Milwaukee's scuttling right now without Middleton. My point, I think Harden's looked good this year. He's an odd duck, though, man. Because he didn't just ask out of Houston. If you remember, he was flouting the COVID protocol. He was at the strip club. He came in overweight. He quit on the team, then instantly went to Brooklyn and was unbelievable in that first year in Brooklyn until he got hurt. It's a weird spot. This was a weird story. And by the way, Houston, I don't mind their core. You got Green, you mentioned Porter Jr., Şengün, and then they are clearly all in on Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, if Wembanyama went there, Harden adding it to it, that's an interesting team. All right, what else we got?
Yeah, well, the interesting part on Harden, though, is this is a guy, you mentioned the strip clubs. You mentioned, not wanting to play, asking out. He's done that before, not showing up. That's Harden's MO in his career. I don't remember the best playoff moment he's had in his life. I don't see it coming in Philly. We'll see what happens in Houston. Next up is, final game of Week 16 tonight, Colts-Chargers. Hopefully it's better than that total disaster last night. I mean, that Bucs game was unwatchable. Indy is starting Nick Foles, big leap from the practice squad. We can't mention his nickname here on TV, but you remember that run in Philly. Nick Foles has some fans out there. Chargers looking for a win. They can clinch a playoff berth. I'm facing Justin Herbert in the fantasy football playoffs, so I'm not rooting for Herbert. Need the Chargers to get the W, obviously, because we do want to see Justin Herbert in the postseason. Line, according to Fox Bet, 3.5. I would just say wait for a 3 if you can get it. Maybe some dumb money comes in on the Colts, as people are going to want to continue to bet this team.
Sure.
Jeff Saturday, a terrible coach, but Brandon Staley's not great. I'm rooting Chargers here.
I like Staley. Here's the thing. I think the Chargers are going to surge into the 5 seed in the AFC. And I think I think the Ravens will lose once, and I think the Chargers are going to end up being the top wild card. And I think that is going to set up Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence in round 1 of the playoffs in Jacksonville, which actually is a potentially great quarterbacking matchup. I agree with you on as far as the gambling advice for this football game. 3.5, if you end up having to lay 4, so be it if it moves a half point against you. But I mean, it's definitely worthwhile to wait to see if you can get it down to 3. The Colts have been outscored, I believe it is 83-9 in the fourth quarters under Jeff Saturday. It's been a disaster. I do think, though, they have a chance that this is the best quarterback they've had play all year. Matt Ryan is clearly done, and Ellinger's not an NFL player at the moment, so we can see what Nick Foles has left in the tank. I forgot he was on the team when they started Ellinger. It seems like that would have been the obvious option, but they didn't go with it.
I don't know if you saw the injury news to the Bengals. I'm just going to point this out. La'el Collins out for the season. When the Chargers get in the playoffs, if they face Cincinnati in round 1, I would love that matchup for the Chargers with Bosa and Mack coming off the edges. And, by the way, Herbert is better than Joe Burrow. Final story. I had to slide that in, Nick, just for you-know-who.
I like
what was the
Herbert
final?
a lot,
That was the final story. We're done, yeah.
There's Jason with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
My
The
guy Joe
Herd
Burrow
Line
can't
News.
get any respect. He just can't get any respect. It's so weird. Josh Allen got more respect for losing to Mahomes than Burrow got for beating Mahomes in the playoffs. It's bizarre. All right, I do want to get to I do want to get to the NBA yesterday briefly, at least. What's happening in Los Angeles